What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Ask Me Anything here on the Joe Everest Defense Expert channel. We've been doing these once a month, and they seem to go pretty well. You guys seem to have quite a few questions, and I love being as helpful as possible for you guys. Before we jump into this big announcement, so I asked you guys over on the communities tab here on the YouTube channel, how often you'd like to see these lives happen. I see feedback in some of the videos that we're asking for it more often, on like a weekly basis. So I went ahead and asked the question: how often would you like would you guys like me to do these? And it came back. It was like 53%, 54% that said weekly in the afternoon / evenings. So we're going to make plans to just make this a weekly thing in the afternoons. So the plan is Thursday afternoons, starting at 3 and ending whenever, 5:30 at the latest, so I can go home and have dinner with my real fam after spending time with you guys, the fence fam. So 3 to 5:30 every Thursday, we'll be going live here with Ask Me Anything, live Q&As. We'll also still reserve the last Tuesday of the month for the morning times because we have friends from all over the world. So right now, Renew says he's here. He's from India. Welcome, Renew. I hope I'm not butchering your name. I hope I'm not. I'm never comfortable pronouncing names of from folks from different areas, but yeah, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. So what we're going to try to do is do these live broadcasts, like I said, every week in the afternoon, but once a month in the morning, so that folks that our afternoon is there overnight. They would still have the opportunity to come in the morning and ask their questions. So, Renew, thank you for joining us. We've got some other folks here. Kyle, hello from Republic, my hometown. Not hometown, is where we live. Yeah, technically grew up in Springfield, but right now me and my family are there in Republic. Kids love the Republic schools. Welcome, Kyle. So, really, the way I like to do these is we had asked some questions in the Facebook groups and in the community yesterday, just asking for your questions. So all I like to do is answer. We had one question come back. I'd like to answer that question. I've got a few talking points, just kind of, fencing in the wintertime sort of questions, both from the homeowner's perspective. Do you guys build fence in the winter? But also from the contractor side. And the big question I get on the contractor side is, how do I market myself through the winter? If we're outdoor trades, wintertime's typically the slow time of year. So we're going to talk about that in the latter part of the video. But we're still going to answer questions as they come up. So let's do this. Let me answer Ravim's question. So Ravim G asked in one of the Facebook groups, what's your reply when customers ask you for pricing on past clients' work? And this question comes up a lot, especially on the fencing side, to where you did my neighbor's fence my neighbor a few doors down, and his yard's roughly the size as mine. I need about the same amount of fence work done. How much was his work? And it's always a tricky question. So I like to answer it with, client, just to be clear, I would never talk about your financial situation with anyone else. I wouldn't share what I charged you, what you paid, for each gate or each foot of fence, any upgrades you did. That wouldn't be right for me to share that information with others. So I don't feel comfortable sharing others' financial information with you. It's financial privacy, right? So, but I can tell you a project about that size, your project would cost X amount of dollars, and that's in today's dollars. Maybe the neighbor's fence was done several years ago, and for you guys that are in the fencing industry right now, prices are nowhere near where they were 10 months ago, much less 2 years ago. Lumber prices have been a roller coaster and mostly going up with a little bit of pullback. So prices in general aren't comparable anyway. But generally, I start off with, Mr. Customer or Miss Customer, you wouldn't want me sharing your financial information with anyone else, would you? I mean, it doesn't seem right to talk about your money with other people. So I wouldn't feel comfortable having that same conversation with you. That's how I'd handle it, Ravim. If you're in the broadcast, say hello. If you have a follow-up question, drop it in the comments below. Stain and Seal Experts is with us. Hello, Stain and Seal Experts. As you guys know, if you've watched any of my content, I like these guys a lot. Their product, their product is very high quality. It's very well thought out and well made. But secondly, they're really good people. I took a trip out there. They're out of Nashville, so they held a university, which is the amazing thing is they hold a free university once a year and have stain and seal contractors, fence contractors from all over the country show up, and they spend a couple days training them on, it's a full 1 day event. I was there for a couple days, but they teach these guys and train these guys and gals on how to stain, how to mix the stain, how to do decks. I talked a little bit about marketing with some folks. What they do is really amazing. And so anyway, really good people. Hello, Stain and Seal Experts. So Renew has a question. So it's a YouTube question. How to complete first 1,000 subscribers. So Renew, great question. Here's my experience. So when you watch YouTube a lot and you follow other YouTube creators, it seems like their first 1,000 subscribers are always a little bit different. For me, what it was, so it was the post foam video. We did a video showing expanding post foams and my first impressions and my review of that particular product. And that got us up over the 1,000 subscriber hump. It was engaging content, right? And so that's always what we strive to do, is answer questions that the fence fam, my followers, have about fencing or marketing, business in general. And we try to do it in an engaging way. And that post foam video is what did it for us. And so we put out content every week. We put out a new video every week, and it seems like once a month we'll really hit the mark really well. Whatever the video we've done that particular week really resonates with a lot of the fence fam out there and a lot of the other folks that haven't found the fence fam yet. And so you'll see our views really spike for several days, and then it kind of comes back down to normal. But the key metric on every one of those videos is it's incredibly engaging. It's visually interesting. It answers a big question and it answers it clearly and concisely. And then folks subscribe to try to follow more content because they say, hey, if this Joe guy is putting out content on this subject, he's probably going to put out content on a subject similar to this that I'm also interested in. We do reaction videos. We've actually got some coming out. They're in editing right now. One thing I've tried to do on our review videos, and it's come through in the comments, is we try to review it in a fair and positive light, right? I think there's too much negativity in the world in general, but in media, because there's this thought that negativity gets views. People like to see conflict. People like to, talk about divisive subjects, that sort of thing. So what we want to do is we want to do reviews, but in a positive light. So find someone that's doing it well and review that and kind of share their great content with my fence fam. Or we've seen some reviews in the past of, some folks have done it in a way that I probably wouldn't have. But we still try to review that in a, we give criticism, but in a constructive way. So Renew, I would say post creative, interesting content. And my request to you would be try to keep it in a positive light. It's easy to fall into, like I said, those divisive subjects and hold a hard line that might be on the negative side of it to really pull at people's passions. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a divisive subject. So I would steer clear. I would ask you to stay with positivity. But thank you, Renew, for showing up. As you have more questions, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to help as much as possible. All right. So J&T Comp says, hey, bud, just wondering the best way to price jobs, but think about this in a handyman way, okay? Where the customer usually only needs minor work done. How can it be priced to make it worth it? So great question. So J&T Comps asks, it is basically on smaller projects, on repair projects, how do you price them to be both fair to the customer, but also make it worth your while to go out and perform the service? And in the fencing industry, we see this a lot on the repair side, right? And that's something that a lot of folks struggle with. They say, well, I want to be fair. Really, they only need a post replaced, or they only need a handful of pickets replaced. So, I mean, really, I don't think I should charge them more than, X dollars, $100 or whatever the number is. I would look at it like this, JT. So, first and foremost, figure out where your overhead is. Every month, you have rent. If you have an office, you have rent, you have utilities, you always have a vehicle payment. Vehicle cost, either the the vehicle payment, the loan payment, insurance, fuel, tags and title that come every year. Figure out what it costs you to do business each and every day, whatever that is. And these are mythical numbers, but say it's $1,000 a day, just round and easy numbers. What you need to do is figure out what portion of that day the task is going to take. So even if it's one post, you still have to mobilize from your location, either your office, your home, etc. You have to go get the post, you have to source it, get to the client's house, get everything set up. Old post comes out, new post goes in, concrete cures. You're probably going to have another trip out. The concrete has to cure typically for a few days. So you have a second trip out. You end up wasting a day. You're not wasting, but you end up using up a day. So a task that seems easy, well, now when you look at it, you say, hey, that's a day. And whatever your overhead number is, a minimum charge would be what it pays for your time. So if it took a whole day and your overhead is $1,000 a day, which I'm not saying it is, but round numbers, that should be a minimum. Your cost to do that would be the $1,000 plus the post, the concrete, and hopefully your time. Hopefully you're charging going rate for your time too. So, I mean, realistically, $1,000 number was a random number. I mean, realistically, it would probably be, $200, $300, $400 a day, plus the materials, plus your labor, and then add in some profit. But in no way, shape, or form should it be less than what your overhead number is every day. I hope that makes sense, JT. If not, drop another comment in the comments below. I'd love to clarify if needed. Oh, that's a good question. Jake from State Line Pickers. Everyone talks about the success and profits earned, but have you ever underbid and lost profits on a job? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it happens, right? So how can it happen? You can miss part of the scope of work, even if you're clear and concise in the scope and everything's clear in the contract, which we've talked about those in this last week's video. You can follow all of the things and still miss a piece of scope of work. The client says, well, remember, but we talked about you're also going to haul off all the materials. You weren't going to leave them here. Or you're also going to haul off all the dirt instead of leaving it here. Or remember, we also talked about putting a double gate on the back corner. And you realize it's in your notes. You did talk about it. You agreed to it. And so you end up doing it because all right, it's not in my scope. It's not my contract, but it's the right thing to do. I did agree that we would do that, and we were going to need to do it. So, or commercial projects is pretty easy to do on a commercial project. It's easy to do when you don't have change orders. So when you're in the middle and you can see this in residential projects too, when you're in the middle of the project, if it's a commercial project, the superintendent comes out and says, hey, while you're here, I need you to go across on the other part of this project and set 4 posts for me. I really appreciate it. Just send me the bill later. All right. Yeah, no problem. Well, then you don't, if it's in the middle of the project, you've got a million other things on your mind and you forget to bill it, or you go to bill it and the billing gets rejected because they say, well, we don't have a signed purchase order. Tom might have asked you to do that, but I don't have anything documented that it was going to be this much money, regardless of how much money it was. So yeah. I mean, I think it's a fact of life that at some point in your company's life cycle, you're going to hit some bumps in the road, and you're going to end up underbidding projects because, well, here's another great example is recently, in the last 10 months, the lumber industry, and actually the steel industry now has been a bit of a roller coaster as far as pricing goes. I see a lot of guys still charging roughly what they used to charge, so what they were charging in February, March, and April, they're still charging now because, hey, that's the price of building fence, and they're losing money or they bid a job 2 months ago, and the prices have changed so significantly in the last 2 months that now they're losing money, but they have a contract signed and they didn't take a deposit, or they took a deposit, but they didn't buy their materials right away. And they're upside down on the project, but they still have to perform it. Right. So yeah, I think we don't talk about it a lot. I mean, that's not something that's fun to talk about, but yeah, absolutely. We have underbid projects and we have lost profits because of pure and simply because of my oversights, because I'm human. And I'll take the blame first and foremost. I mean, we have a team. I have a team at the fence company that performs great work, but I'll absolutely be the first one to fall on the sword because, I mean, ultimately, it's my ship, right? I'm the captain of the ship, and everything starts and stops with me. So, has it happened? Yes. Once it happens, do we do a bit of an after actions report? A bit of a what went wrong and how can it not go wrong again? Absolutely, 100%. So, yeah. To answer your question, that's a really long answer, but yes, we have. All right, guys. I apologize. My contacts are really, really having issues today. All right. Well, that was Jake. We already answered that. John says, "Hi. Had a small ranch in Florida. Retired to Rhode Island. Not much going on here with barbed wire, but really enjoy your channel. Mostly do handwork for using post hole diggers. How or where do you advertise?" All right. So a little bit to unpack there. So you kind of went backwards, John. From Florida to Rhode Island. Usually you see folks do it the other way. They start off life in the northern climates and then they migrate south. So bravo to you for taking the path less traveled. Not much going on here with barbed wire. That's understandable. I appreciate you enjoying the channel. I mean, we try to create content that you guys will enjoy. I'm happy to hear that some of that's resonating with you. Mostly do handwork using postal diggers. I have lived that life. So throughout middle school and high school, parts of after high school, I spent quite a bit of time digging fence holes. At the time, we ran multiple crews. We ran crews. We ran dig crews and set crews and finish crews. And I spent quite a bit of time on the set crew. And so I've spent quite a bit of time with a pair of diggers in my hands. And I probably have really rough hands to show for it. But it's good, honest work. So the question here is, how or where do you advertise? John, so that's a pretty broad question. We advertise a lot of places, and really, so the answer is anywhere that works, right? But that wasn't really the question. I think your question more to the point was, what is working? For me, for us, for the fence company, social media. We use social media quite a lot. Now, we also do traditional advertising on the radio, that sort of thing, and we sponsor area events. So whether it's a golf tournament or a 5K run or so someone else here is from my town of Republic, Missouri. We sponsored their theater. So we got an advertisement in their program. We do a lot of traditional media, print media, such like that. But for us, the real gold is in social media, because social media gives us the opportunity to form a connection. Much like you and I are talking right now, it gives us as a fence company an opportunity to meet our clients before we ever knock on their door. We spend a lot of time on Facebook. We a little bit on Instagram, posting pictures. We use Instagram really like our book of business because it's staying updated constantly with recent pictures of the work that we're completing. But we're on Facebook a lot. And so a couple years ago, I was more on the sales side than right now. I'm kind of on the business management side. But when I was on the sales side, I did a lot of Facebook videos with literally my phone. And it would literally be me talking to the phone and be like, "Hey guys, Joe with Ozark Fence, and I'm out here talking about X, Y, and Z, as you can see behind me." And I sit and chat with them about, maybe it was when we were introducing the Postmaster Steel Post, or we were talking about the Cedar we use, anything like that. And so I was on Facebook a lot, is the point. Videos straight to my phone, straight to upload. And they would get to the point where when I knock on the door, when someone called and wanted us to come give them a proposal. This is pre-pandemic when we were doing proposals in person. I would go knock on the door, and we'd never met before. But in one instance, pops out in my mind is this lady answered the door, and she's like, "Oh, well, you're that guy from Facebook." And I got this question, or I got that comment a lot, so I kind of had a little skit, I guess you'd say. And so I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Listen, I am way too cheap to be hiring somebody to play me on Facebook. And if they did, would they look like me? And we'd kind of have a chuckle about it. And then we went into their backyard and we were measuring. And I said, Miss Customer, we do things a little bit differently than most in our area. We only use steel posts because we feel that the value is there because they don't warp and twist. They don't rot. They're warranted for life against rust, that sort of thing. And she said, oh, honey, I know. I actually watched that video you did on the Postmaster Steel Post, and that's exactly what I want you to bid. So before I showed up, Miss Customer she knew who I was. So I'd already kind of built some rapport and some trust with her. And she knew what I was going to talk to her about. She'd already watched the videos on the Postmaster Steel Post, and she knew that was a product she wanted. So we were already 10, 15 minutes ahead of the conversation simply because I talked to my phone a lot and posted it on Facebook. So to your question, how or where do you advertise? Video on Facebook is absolutely the best bang for the buck. You do not have to pay for a Facebook page, a professional page. You typically already have a smartphone that has an incredible camera on it. So that technically is free if you already haven't or are using it. So that's something you could get into at no cost. I mean, minus your time, but any time spent towards marketing, especially in social media, will be paid back in, 10, 20, 30x. So John, I would recommend that. I would recommend start with social media because it gives people an opportunity to meet you and get to know you and hopefully know, like, and trust you. So great question, John. Thank you. Let's see, Kyle says, looking at having a fence built, do you recommend cedar over pine? And our steel post worth the investment? Ozark Fence just built a fence across the street from us. Oh, great. Great looking fence. Great work. Kyle, thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so right now we're not even offering pine simply because the price of pine, now the price of treated pine has come back a little bit. I mean, it was pretty outrageously priced. The problem is the pricing they're giving is still for number 2 treated pine. It's not for the number 1 prime. So you're still having a value issue with treated pine. Whereas with cedar, we're still getting the same Western red cedar in that we've gotten from Alta Lumber. It's got a 15-year warranty on it. So when those two products are similarly priced, even though treated pine is once again less than cedar, it got to a point where it was more, and that was mind-boggling. But so even though treated pine is a little bit less, we still have to compare quality. So you've got a number 2 treated pine Picket. It should be half the price of cedar or somewhere in that ballpark, and it's not nearly. So yeah, so cedar versus treated pine, no matter who builds your fence, I would absolutely recommend cedar over treated pine. It's a better product in general, and especially right now for the price of treated pine, the value is not there. And this conversation travels over to your next question about are steel posts worth it over a wood post, a treated pine post, and it's the same thing. It's the same conversation that yeah, absolutely, because the steel posts we use Postmaster. There's also lifetime posts. There's other posts out in the market that imitate the Postmaster design. A steel post is absolutely worth the investment because right now treated pine posts that we're seeing in our local area are failing 8 to 10 years or sometimes less, mainly due to rot. So the treatment process is different. They may be getting less treatment right now since they're trying to push out this product faster and faster to try to keep up with demand. They're not doing a very good job of keeping up with it anyway. So my fear is that a product that was lasting only 8 to 10 years is probably lasting less now, simply because they're trying to rush the product to market. Whether we do the fence or anyone else does a fence, absolutely ask for cedar pickets and ask for the steel post. That way it's a fence that you won't have to worry about, we say for generations to come, but realistically 20, 25, 30 years. Cal, thanks for the question. And thanks for joining in. I like to talk to local folks here. Not that I don't mind talking to Renew from India, but yeah, welcome. Michael asked, how do you quote your standard picket fence jobs? So the answer here is, we know what it costs us to build a foot of fence, just in labor. We know so we figure up our labor costs for the year, divide that by 52 to get labor costs per the week. Now, let me talk about labor costs. It's wages, but it's also the business costs, the taxes, the insurance, work comp, that sort of thing. But it's also the benefits that we offer. So what is our total cost of work or total cost of labor to perform the work? Break it down by 52 to where we know how much labor costs us each week, and then divide that by how many feet we can perform per week of, in this case, a picket fence. If we could build random numbers, if we could build 600 foot of 4-foot picket, then we would take our labor or total labor for the week, divide it by that number. And so we know it cost X amount of dollars to build 4-foot picket fence. Then we'd add that into our materials cost, whatever we know that, you've got your post, pickets, rails, nails, screws, and concrete. Add all those together with the labor, add in our markup to include our overhead. So we have a cost each and every day of running this business, whether it's the lease payment or it's the lease rent on our building, the utilities, the insurance, etc. The business insurance, and we package that all up, and that gives us a price. Is it as quick and easy as just putting a per foot number on it? No. But is it more accurate? Absolutely. And it gets us away from the question that got asked earlier, have we ever underbid a job and lost money on a job? Absolutely. And that was typically when we were using just a standard, it costs X dollars per foot per fence. To build a 4-foot picket fence, it's always X dollars per job. It's really not, just because our labor can fluctuate depending on who is on this crew and how they're getting paid, how much they're getting paid. What our overhead is like. If it's summertime, we have more overhead because we're typically using more utilities, more electric. If it's wintertime, we have this lower overhead, but it's spread over less amount of feet per job. So actually our per foot price probably goes up a little bit in wintertime, just because we're trying to spread that cost of overhead over fewer jobs. It's complicated, right? There's no quick and easy solution. I wish there was. It would be super nice if I could just say, hey, 4-foot picket fence costs X dollars per foot. But really, it's a case-by-case basis. Thank you, Michael. All right. Jose JH says, so recently I replaced my whole fence after finding out how expensive is the top piece, 2x8/16. I have put it on hold. What other dimensions do you suggest or use on your projects? Thanks. Okay, so what Jose's talking about is so probably cap and trim style wood fence. Now, it's not common in our area, but I see it a lot, particularly in the South, the Southwest. Texas has a lot of it. Oklahoma has some, but typically, so what they'll do is, so this 2x8/16 is probably going to be on the top as like a top cap on the fence. Jose, we don't build that type of fence here. It's simply just not common. We tried to. We've showed it at several of the home shows, but when we price it out, our local market simply isn't interested in it. So I don't know. I mean, the answer to your question is, what other dimensions do you suggest? I mean, you could. This is me, a guy not building this fence, but you might could do a 2x6. So one of the reviews that we've got coming up. April Wilkerson built a horizontal fence with a top cap. I'll have to go back and watch that video. I want to say she used a 2x6. And instead of using 16s, you could try to use 8s. So the thing with lumber in general is the longer you get, the more expensive it is per foot, because they have to find a tree that long with that much good wood in it to make that cut. So it could be that you'd find, 8-foot, 2x8 foot would be less per foot than a 16-foot. You'd really want to kind of mess around with it. If you could use a 2x6, I think that would probably be a little bit cheaper, but I don't know that for a fact. I haven't built the cap and trim. But Jose, thank you for your question. All right, welcome Matthew. First way to go with over 11,000 subscribers. Thank you guys. I mean, no, that's amazing, and that's because of guys and gals like you, the fence fam out there. I am humbled that many of you subscribe to the channel and hear me go down these rabbit holes with these answers. But yeah, thank you guys. Yeah. So Matthew brings up a great point. And I'm glad he did. This is one of the talking points that's up on the board. So right now I'm giving away 10K. So I've got a whole video that is about the 10K giveaway. It's on the uploads playlist on our channel. So it goes to the end of the year. The December 31st is the, at 11:59 p.m. is the cutoff. And then a week later, we're going to announce the winner because we're going to I'll give you some insight into my personal life. So I've got a little one coming, and the little one's going to be showing up right in that same time period. So, we had a thought of, do we make the contest shorter? No, I didn't want to do that because it gives less people the opportunity to get in on the contest. Do we postpone the contest? Nope, that doesn't feel right either. So they're kind of happening at the same time. So I'm giving ourselves a week to make the announcement, knowing that I'll either have a brand new little kiddo running around, or we will be within days of having a kiddo running around. So December 31st is the cutoff. A week later, I'll make the announcement. I'll probably do a live broadcast so the way the contest works is when you go onto the website, which is in the description on the video, I've got the web link in there. When you click the web link, you provide an email address, just whatever email address you want. So this is going to be in the form of Amazon e-gift cards. So whatever email address you want the gift card sent to, you type that email address in there, and that gives you one entry. Now, within the contest website, the contest site, there are additional opportunities for more entries. So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that gets you, I think, 50 entries. You can like our Facebook page, the Joe Everest Facebook page, and you'd get 50 more entries. And then you could watch some of our YouTube videos, and you get 25 entries. On average, right now, it looks like people are getting 350 to 400 entries per user just by checking it. You can also check in each day. Once you check in each day, you get another couple entries. But yeah, 350 to 400 entries. And then at the end of this, once at December 31st, 11:59, it shuts down. And then we can go in and we can ask the program, the contest software, the website, to randomize, and we'll say pick X amount of entries, and it'll randomize all of these entries and spit out 10 winners. And so what we'll likely do is we'll do a live video where we randomize it. I probably won't show you guys the actual software, only because it's also going to show email addresses, and that doesn't feel very safe to me. So we'll probably do another live like this where I'm on screen. I'll randomize it, and then I'll announce the winners. And of course, emails will go out to the winners with the e-gift card information, and we'll go from there. So, yep, that's a 10K. You're welcome for the 10K. If you guys haven't got in on that, be sure to do that. If I win, can you just drop ship some Postmasters to my home in Florida over a gift card? I wish it were that easy. No, so it'll be an Amazon e-gift card. That's the way that was the best way that we could figure to try to get, this prize money out to folks. Because as you saw, we have people that watch this channel surprisingly from all over the world, whether it's India, or we have we have a pretty large contingent up in Canada, throughout Europe, then Australia, New Zealand. If any of you guys are here, be sure to say hi. I'd like to say hey to you. So what's the easiest way to try to get these winnings to the people all over the world that are entering? And I think Amazon is one of those companies that kind of spans the globe. And so the easiest way to get those winnings out there would be e-gift cards. But if I could drop ship some Postmasters and a gift card, I absolutely would. Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate it. Mike C. Okay. Where do you buy Steel Post? So the Postmaster Steel Post that we buy directly from Master Halco. They have the patent on the Postmaster name. There's also other posts out there. Like I said, Lifetime is a post that comes to mind. I'm not really clear. I'm not really clear on who they're distributed through. You can also find these in home stores. So after I posted the video about the Steel Post, the Postmaster Post, I've seen them in Lowe's, but I saw there's a few comments in that video's comments about that they've seen them at Home Depot. So sometimes home improvement stores. But if you strike out at the home improvement store, so Master Halco only sells to fence companies. That's kind of their dividing line on where they do and don't sell to. But there's probably a lot of fence companies. Mine's one of them, but there's a lot of fence companies pretty much in every market that will sell retail also. My thinking is if we have the material, we might as well sell it. That way you're getting actual contractor grade material. So I would reach out to first try your Lowe's, Home Depot. If those don't have the post that you're looking for, try your area fence companies. Likely one or two of those will sell the steel posts. But yeah, Mike, great question. Zebra says, how often should I treat cedar planks? Yearly or twice a year? I live in northern Utah, hot and arid with the summer of 95% of our precipitation in the winter snow. So if we're talking about, if we're talking, and so then he goes on to say, I live in northern Utah. So it depends on what the product that you're treating it with. So I like that it's starting off with cedar planks. That's absolutely the great first step in this process. Depends on the treatment. So, the guys and gals over at Stain Steel Expert said hello earlier. I like using their product. We use it as a company. Full transparency, we sell it. But I have access to pretty much all the stains out there in the market. I mean, as a company, we could approach them, open up an account, and we could certainly buy whatever's out there. I like Stain Steel Experts. It's a safer product to handle, has lower VOCs, which are it's a health concern. But within the product, it also really depends on how thick or how much pigment that stain has. And here's the example I give is, so say you've got 3 sunscreens. So you're going out to the beach one day and you've got, SPF 0 tanning oil, SPF 30, and then you have SPF 75, something crazy. Well, the 75 is going to need to be applied less often than the 30, and the 30 is going to need to be applied less often than the 0. Because they have more pigment. So the 75 is going to be thicker. It's going to be more white than the 30 SPF sunscreen. It's going to have more pigment to it because at the end of the day, the sunscreen and the fence stain are performing really the same task. They're being the sacrificial layer between either your skin or your cedar plank and UV rays. UV on skin presents itself as a sunburn. Sometimes they can be very bad. In lumber, it presents itself as graying and decaying wood. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent UV damage. So the Stain Steel Expert products we use, typically it's a 2-year warranty. We recommend you reapply it every 2 years. That way the board is always under warranty for the stain. But you hear about people that are only reapplying it every 3 to 5 years. That's okay too, as long as we all understand that the warranty ends at 2 years. But you really shouldn't have to apply it twice a year unless, and this is a big unless, you're using the equivalent of an SPF 0. So if you're using a clear stain or clear stain, well, it wouldn't be a stain at that point, would it? It'd be a clear sealant. You would probably want to reapply that a couple times a year, I would guess. It's a lot like the tanning oil. You would want to keep applying it, keep moisturizing your skin to try to prevent sunburn. But yeah, so it depends on the product. I like Stain Steel Experts. I like their line, and it's every 2 to 3 years on that, depending on which product within their product line. All right. Mateus says, why has the fence industry been booming in states like Washington in the coronavirus pandemic? That's a great question. So we're seeing it here in Missouri also, not nearly like the coast. So the one thing about the Midwest is we're always delayed from anything you see on either East or West Coast. And it's typically not as severe, which is the peaks and the valleys. So we don't typically see the booms that the either coast would see, but we also really don't see the valleys either. But it is still picking up. Business here is still very busy. I think, and this is one guy's opinion, what I think it is. So families had vacations planned this year. If they were like my family, we had a savings account that, every week's check we put a little bit more into, and then once a year we go on a family vacation. This year that obviously didn't happen, but that fund was still there. So we decided as a family that we were going to do some home improvement projects to try to put that money into something that was, more productive. It would add value to our house, hopefully, if done correctly. I think you're seeing that with a lot of families. That's what makes sense to me, is that families have money that would have been spent on a vacation, but rather than spending on a vacation this year that they couldn't go on, they're spending it on home improvement projects. And it's not just in fencing. So I have some friends that do decks. Deck industry right now is just as crazy as fence. They're facing the same material shortages that we face. But also you're seeing that consumer goods, right? So, we tried to go find my daughter a bicycle for her birthday. Good luck. There's no bicycles anywhere. As far as off the shelf bikes, we're not going fully custom road bike here. Also, I know a guy that has the jacuzzi franchise in town, and this is a few months old, but they couldn't get jacuzzis in. They couldn't keep them in. It's like this everywhere. So people have this disposable income that would have been spent traveling on vacations or otherwise, that they simply haven't been able to use. And so they're reinvesting that into their properties, is my experience. One guy's opinion. If you guys have opinions on it, I'd love to hear it. I mean, I'm always constantly learning. Mike C says, will you set fence posts with concrete in below freezing weather? Yeah. So here's yes. And here's how. So, and it depends how long it's been freezing, right? How deep is the frost line in the ground? Because, when we start getting really concerned with frost line is going to be, for us in the Midwest and Southwest Missouri is going to be February, late January into February. It's been cold for a while. The ground is getting really cold. The frost depth is creeping lower and lower, and we have less warm ground to deal with. Now, right now late November, early December. And even though, so here in the next week or so, it's supposed to get down below freezing. And of course, overnight lows are in the 20s. But I wouldn't be super concerned with concrete only because the ground below is still fairly warm. So you still have that geothermal heat stored in the ground. Now, if it's in February and it's super cold, snow and ice on the ground, that sort of thing, you could add calcium chloride to the concrete. It'll heat that concrete up, but you had better be ready to use it immediately because all it's doing is it's hurrying along the setting process, the curing process. So, you'll see those posts set up within an hour for sure. Depends on how much calcium chloride you use. So calcium chloride is also used. It was used and it's still used, but so we would use like a quickcrete right now if we needed a post set today and we needed to hang on it this afternoon. If we're setting this morning, we need to hang on this afternoon. So back in the day when we were hand mixing concrete and we had to have it set up today, we would add calcium chloride, even if it was in the summer, because that heat furthers that chemical reaction in the concrete and it quickens the curing time. So great question, Mike. All right. Jose's here from Arlington, Texas. Thank you, Jose. I hope we answered your question. If not, drop it in the comments below. I'm trying to keep up with the comments, guys, but they're coming in kind of quick. So maybe a little bit of patience here. All right. How deep do you set your posts in ground for a 6-foot wood fence? How deep for an 8-foot? So for us, 24-inch minimum on 6 foot. Typically, it's a 36-inch minimum on 8 foot. But understand, though, here, Mike, is that's in our soil, which it's a fairly rocky soil, which just means it's going to hold a lot better than a sandy soil would. On a sandy soil or a soft, like a loamy soil, something soft it's not going to hold itself very well. ASTM standards are 30 inches. So you might want, if you had a softer soil, you might want to start at 30 inches. Really, it's going to vary. It's going to vary, area to area. But minimum of 24 would be my thing. All right, Charlie Tuna just discovered your channel last night. Thanks for the solid info, dude. Charlie, thank you, dude. What a name, Charlie Tuna. Glad you're here with us. Thank you very much. We are very excited for this kiddo. This is kiddo number 3, and we're done. So I keep preparing myself. I say, all right, so we got diapers coming, but these are the last diapers. Every diaper that we have to change is one less diaper, is one more closer to no more diapers ever until, the kids grow up many years later and have their own kids, and then we'll be back to diaper duty. But yeah, thank you, Matthias. All right, fishing and picking. Question: how do I stain my fence if my neighbor refuses to allow me to step foot on their property? I was nice enough to have the good side facing them. Well, that's a tough question. So, I mean, you could use a penetrating sealant. So Stain and Seal Experts, again, is one that we use and we recommend. It's a penetrating sealant, which just means that the stain and sealant is pulled through the board. But the problem is, since you have the finished side facing the neighbor, that's not going to look right because you're going to have your 2x4s covering the picket at the top, middle, and bottom. So even if it does penetrate, it's not going to get through that. The board will wick some of that stain past the 2x4, but not all of it, obviously. So fish and picking, you're in a tight spot there. Really, I mean, so I mean, I guess you could use a rolling brush on an extendable pole with a ladder. You could reach up over the fence and stain it. So really, the question is, uh, what what's the underlying issue here? Right? Is if you explain to the neighbor that, hey, I'm preserving this fence so that we don't have an issue down the road, so it keeps it looking nice. Um, but if that's out, I mean, I guess that would be the only solution I would come up with is an extension pole with a roller. Try to do it that way, but it's going to be a mess. There's going to be a lot of stain end up on the grass of your neighbor. Um, Not a great solution there. I apologize. All right, Michael says you're right about the Facebook postings. They are very effective in marketing. I learned a lot about fence construction from your YouTube postings about fencing. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, video allows us, so the humans in general communicate most effectively when it's spoken word from person to person. So that you can judge inflection, you can judge facial expression, you can judge gestures, that sort of thing. Obviously, it's not scalable for this to happen in person. So social media is a great bridge. It's a great scaling opportunity. So that rather than me, have this conversation in a room of 4 or 5 people, we're now having it, with right now there's 17 people watching this video right now, and who knows how many people will watch this video after it's recorded or after it's put on the YouTube channel after it's recorded. So yeah, social media is tremendously effective at scaling, visual, audible communication. Jennifer has a question. Says my wooden fence has developed green algae-like areas on boards not exposed to the sun. I want to restain my fence, but want to remove this first. What's the best method to remove this? Power washer. No, Jennifer, not the power washer. Step away from the power washer. Unfortunately, it's what a lot of the current it's what a lot of the advice is given of just power wash it. My concern with power washing is one, I mean, yes, you will strip off that layer, that dead layer, the UV damaged layer of wood. So you'll see nice fresh wood underneath. The problem is it's pulsating, it's driving into the lumber. So some of that algae that you see, while it does take what's on the surface off, it's also power driving some of that algae deeper into the board, and you simply won't get it back out. What I'd recommend is applying an algicide. And you can find algicides at most of your big box stores. They're literally, I think, called Fence Wash is one of the products. But really, what you're looking for is some sort of, they have Fence Wash, Deck Wash, that sort of thing. You're looking for an algicide. You want to spray the algicide on. My process is we get the wood wet. That way, it's not pulling the algicide, all the way deep into. Because if it's the first application, the algae is on the surface. So we wet the wood down, we wet all the ground around it, because if it's killing algae, it can also kill bushes, shrubs, and grass. So we want to wet everything down. That way everything is full with water and it can't take on the algicide. Apply the algicide, let it be effective. It depends on the product, but typically within 5-10 minutes. And then soft wash it off. And when I say soft wash, I mean with a hose. Now, it can be a hose with a soaking nozzle or a rinsing nozzle, not the pressure nozzle, and rinse the fence off and let it dry. Give it the rest of the day. The next day, go out and look at the fence. And if the algae still persists, apply it again. Sometimes, so the algicide is going to, be most effective on the first layer of algae it gets to. Now, sometimes it'll pull through the algae. Like if it's thick algae, it'll pull through a lot of it, but it won't get that base layer. So after you've rinsed it off and let it dry, you see, okay, we were able to rinse off most of the algae, but there are still pockets of it. Reapply it again, let it set 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever the directions call for, and then rinse it off again, let it dry, see if that's been effective. Typically the first application is effective. Sometimes we've seen that we have to go back the next day and reapply on some really stubborn, thick algae. But algae is absolutely your friend. Pressure washing, it visually it looks effective, but like I said, it's power driving part of that algae deeper into the board. And then when you seal it, you're actually sealing that algae in, and it could create a bigger problem for you long term. Great question, Jennifer. So, follow-up question for Jennifer: what is the best way to avoid wood planks from developing these green markings? So, I mean, staining and sealing it is obviously a good first step. So, it's probably on north-facing. If it's here in the United States, it's probably on a north-facing structure, the northern-facing part of your fence, that just doesn't get a lot of sunlight. So, UV kills algae. So, algae grows where it's getting the least amount of UV coverage. That's why you see the north sides of houses, the north roofs, the north-facing roofs, north facing fences all form algae. What I would do, we offer a service as a company, but what I would do is every spring apply this algicide to your fence, even if it's stained. Now, if it's stained, the algicide, if it's done at a correct, the per the directions volume, the mixing ratio, it shouldn't affect that stain. I mean, try it on a small part before you apply it to your whole fence. But I would apply the algicide once a year in the spring. Let it set, let it be effective 10 to 15 minutes, whatever the directions call for, and then rinse it off. Doing this once a year kills whatever colony is starting to grow there on your fence. Because typically you see algae form over the course of 2, 3, 4 years. So if you're performing this once a year, and I like the spring, it also gives the fence a fresh, clean look too. Do it once a year. You prevent this from coming back. Great questions. Mark asked a great question. How important is it? How important is it for a contractor to have insurance when working at my home? Two, are they a real contractor if they don't have insurance? Insurance is a broad question. So yeah, they obviously need insurance, but we have some videos coming up. So I did a live interview a month ago with an insurance agent here in our area, but that was one of the subjects was if they just say they're insured, what does that mean? I mean, technically, if I'm a contractor out on my own and I have, my vehicle's insured, I could probably tell people, well, yeah, I'm insured. But is that the real story? So what I'd like to see, what would be mandatory would be the contractor obviously has vehicle insurance, liability insurance that covers, if they damage an underground utility that's properly marked, that would be a liability issue. But also workman's compensation insurance. And that's the big one. And I think that's what Mark's getting at is you want to make sure contractors that are doing work on your property hold workman's compensation insurance. And what workman's compensation insurance covers is, say it's a wood fence and they're holding up the boards and they're nailing and somehow someone says something, they look away, nail goes into the hand or some other work related incident that happens on your property. So they get taken to the hospital, get all figured out, all good. If there's workman's compensation insurance in place and the business can't cover that cost themselves, the workman's compensation insurance can cover that work-related injury. If there's not workman's compensation insurance, and this all happens, the company doesn't have money to pay for whatever that is to get fixed, and there's no insurance, then the liability falls on the property that they were working on. So you, the homeowner, end up having to pay the medical bill on this because technically they were working on your property for a project for you, for an improvement on your property. Workman's compensation insurance is mandatory. It's a must. So the follow-up question is, well, how do I know? This guy says he's insured. How do I know? It's as easy as asking for a certificate of insurance. You could say, one thing if we're having projects around the house is, what needs to be given to me with a proposal is a copy of your certificate of insurance. It just needs to be given to me with your proposal. That way I know that I can qualify these proposals. And there's a certificate of insurance has a number of the insurance agency that's giving that insurance, a quick call to say, hey, I'd just like to confirm that this certificate is still valid. Because sometimes certificates can be printed and then the policy canceled. Call the policy holder or the policy provider up, the insurance agent, and say, hey, I just want to make sure this policy is still in force. It'll have a section for the policy number, and then the agent will be able to tell you whether or not that policy is in force. Workman's compensation is a required minimum. So the next part is an opinion question, right? 2, are they a real contractor if they don't have insurance? So what's a real contractor? Are they a professional contractor? I would say no. If they don't have workman's compensation insurance or general liability, I would say no. I mean, they are someone that does this as a hobby, but those are the folks that will get in that can get into the most trouble on larger projects or even a small home project if they damage the utility. So say they don't have general liability insurance and they hit a marked line. A lot of times you see a marked line of AT&T or Mediacom in our area, like a television provider, coaxial or fiber one. If that line is marked and they dig within 2 foot of that line and damage the utility, they are liable for that damage. So for non-fiber optic, that typically starts at $3,000. Fiber optic can start at $6, $7, $8,000. If that contractor doesn't have liability insurance and they decide that they just want to go bankrupt, so they don't have to pay for this, well, then that utility provider comes back to the homeowner because again, the damage occurred while there was a property improvement being performed on your property. General liability, workman's compensation insurance. Yeah, if they don't have these insurance, I would call them a hobbyist, and those are the folks that can put you in the most danger. Great question, Mark. I appreciate you. So we kind of answered this, Carlos, and so like I said, I'm trying to keep up with these questions, but this might have been a little bit older. Stain and Seal Experts is the brand of stain that we prefer to use. Like I said, full transparency, we sell it retail, but for the local contractors in our area, you can also buy it on their website, and it's literally Stain and Seal Experts. Hey, Stain and Seal Experts, if you guys are still on the broadcast, why don't you drop a link in the comments below? If not, I'll do that after the broadcast. But those are the guys and gals that I like to do business with. It's a great product, but they're legitimately good people. Jennifer says, thank you for the recommendations. I wasn't aware of an algicide wash method. Yeah. So that's the thing is a lot of the feedback that we see is pressure washing. And because that's kind of been the go-to answer because visually it looks clean. And this goes for fences, decks, houses. Once you clean it with the power washer, it looks clean, but it's really not until you use an algicide. But like I said, they're not hard to find. Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, whatever your local home improvement store will have a fence wash, deck wash. They're called different things, but that's essentially if you go to the painting department and ask for an algicide, they'll point you in the right direction. Lisa says, I'm seeing some contractors having insurance but no license. How does this affect the homeowner if something goes wrong? So, Lisa, this is going to vary, region to region. So here in Missouri, specifically in Southwest Missouri, really the only license that's required is a general business license. So there's no real testing. Really you pay, the fee and that's assessed based on how much business you do. And then you're given the business license. There's no real trades license for fencing. Now, that's absolutely different in other regions and other states. California is one of the more stricter states as far as fencing, from what I've heard from contractors I've talked to. So my understanding, and Lisa, if you've got better information, I'd love to hear it. My understanding is if it's an unlicensed trade, they can't pull permits. So if a permit is required, they're not going to pull it and they're just going to do the fence without a permit. That fence can be taken down. The city or whoever requires the permit, whoever requires the license, can require that fence to come down because it was not properly installed per their requirements or regulations. So if you're in an area, so that's a great question to ask though. And I would call up your city hall and ask, hey, I'm wanting to have X work done, a fence, a deck, a road, whatever the trade is. What are the licensing requirements and what are the permit requirements for that work so that you're already educated before the first contractor comes out to say, hey, in our city, I know that we require a license. Could I see a copy of your, contractor's license or whatever the trade is? And I know that permits are required by the city. Are you pulling the permits or am I required to pull the permits? Because in a lot of areas where trades permits are not required, the homeowner typically pulls the permits. So great questions to ask. Start with your city hall. If your city doesn't have requirements, then you can go to your county hall, ask them, like I said, our professional trade licenses required, and is there business insurance required? Great question, Lisa. Penny Joe asks, we have Master Halco Post ordered. Any idea when lumber prices might come down? Penny, that's a great question. And so So we did an interview last week with Tony Thornton. He's the executive director of the American Fence Association. And so this is a guy that deals directly with manufacturers on like probably a near daily basis. And he's saying first to second quarter next year at the earliest. Originally I did a video of kind of when this was all starting to happen in the spring. And at that time, our agent or the buying agents or selling agents were saying probably fourth quarter this year, we ought to have everything back in supply. And we're right now in the middle of fourth quarter and we're not seeing any sort of production stabilization at all. You're seeing pricing come down a little bit. As I talked about in the beginning, though, we're seeing pricing coming down, but it's still on number two quality treated pine. If we're talking about treated pine, it's number 2 quality. So, I would defer to Tony's thoughts that I think first quarter next year might be a little bit ambitious. I would almost say probably second to third quarter to play safe. We need to get out of hurricane season first, because treated lumber first goes to higher profit margin items, which are your structural lumber and hurricane related. So plywood, that sort of thing, hurricane related products are being stockpiled right now, just in case, we have a bad hurricane here at the tail end of hurricane season. So let's get out of hurricane season first, and then we'll probably have a better idea, but second and third quarter next year. So halfway through next year would probably be pretty accurate. All right. You're very welcome, Carlos. Stain Steel Experts is still here. Hey guys, drop a link to where folks can purchase stain, your online website or online sales site there. That way, if someone's watching and would like more information, they can get in touch with you guys directly. That would be awesome. Danny, hello, mate. How are you? Could you listen to my school's music group's new song, please? We're a little Catholic group here in Madrid. Yeah, absolutely. So let's do this. So post it up on so we have a Facebook group. So it's facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. And that gets to, my public Facebook page. Drop it on there. We'll all have a listen to it. Absolutely. Okay. If someone wants to look it up, the name is, I'm going to butcher that, Cecilamente from Hakuna Group. Very good. But go ahead and post it in the, post it on our Facebook group. All right. Lisa has follow up. Yeah. So her county does require permits for everything. So it's funny that this varies region to region. So here in Southwest Missouri, so the city that my business is in is Springfield, Missouri. They do require permits for fencing. Most of the cities around us do, but the counties don't, unless it surrounds a pool. And that opens up a whole different discussion. But if it's just a fence around a yard, the counties have no say. They don't have any sort of stipulations or requirements for, permits or anything like that. But every little city has their own permitting requirements. So it's interesting to hear in other regions that counties do. Lisa, you're very welcome. And Penny, you're very welcome. Jimbo asked, do you use a dump trailer? So we don't. I could absolutely see where one would come in handy, though. So that's probably on something we're going to look at first part of next year. Really, if we're trying to move large amounts of dirt off a site, then they would certainly come in handy. I could also see it coming in handy for like a metal recycling. We have a metal recycling dumpster on our lot that they come and pick up once in a while, usually once a month. But I can see where a dump trailer would come in really handy. Typically, if we're setting posts and we have to haul dirt off the site, so we have a 20-foot flatbed trailer that goes with every truck, and typically that's enough room and it has side, we could put temporary sides on it, so you can haul quite a bit of dirt on that trailer. But I absolutely could see where a dump trailer would come into use. Do you use a dump trailer, Jimbo, and how do you use it? I'd love to hear. All right, I'm just going to say this once, just so that we recognize it. Nope. And I'm not even going to read it. I'll let you guys read it. Thank you, pink guy. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. So you can absolutely, purchase the stain through us. If you're local to our office here in Southwest Missouri, in Springfield specifically, we're a retail location. We sell it. But if you're not, so I get we get a lot of emails from folks wanting to buy it. but they're in other areas asking us if we ship the stain out to them, and we don't. We typically refer them to the Stain and Steel Experts website so that they can find a contractor maybe near them, or B, buy it right there on the website. So appreciate that. Okay. Yeah. Jimbo's the same boat. So looking at a dump trailer as well. I absolutely see the value. I can see that for sure. As I'm sitting here thinking about, like, you could use it for so many different things, but it's one of those things where the list never ends of equipment you need, right? So while we're planning on it first part of next year, who knows what's going to come up. So we're in the process of maybe expanding a little bit on our shop. So that's going to take priority one. And then it's like anything. We were originally thinking about dump trailer for this year, but we needed some new equipment. Some equipment started being very inconsistent, very unreliable. So we had to do that. But our plan is first part of next year. All right, so let's do this. So we're an hour in, and I haven't really even gotten to the subjects of do you fence in the winter? So this is a question we start getting. So we start doing home shows usually in January. Is HBA's home show. Technically, it's still they're still planning on having it. I haven't heard that it's canceled yet, but wouldn't shock me if that happened. But anyway, that's number one question we get during the winter is, when do you guys start building fence again? And for us here in Southwest Missouri, and some of our fencing brothers and sisters a little bit further north, we fence all winter long. It never really gets bad enough in the wintertime that we can't build fence. As one of the questions asked earlier, can you set concrete in cold temperatures? You absolutely can. If you add calcium chloride, it heats that concrete up. Now, it also cures it incredibly fast too, so you have to be ready. But we build fence all winter long so that we can keep our guys gainfully employed through the winter too. Everyone has bills. So there's two kind of rules of thought here. One is you staff up early in the spring to numbers that you can perform all the work that comes through your door, every piece of work in a timely manner, and you double your workforce. But then things start slowing down. Typically, it's usually right around now, right around Thanksgiving. Things start slowing down a little bit and for fencing, and then you typically have to end up letting whatever that half of their workforce go because they were really only here to try to help you through summer, through your busy months. My problem with that is, like I said, it's right around Thanksgiving. So am I going to let half my workforce go right before Thanksgiving? No. What comes after Thanksgiving? The holiday season. For us, we celebrate Christmas, but you also have lots of holiday seasons out there that are celebrated. And I don't think anybody would feel great about letting half their workforce go before a holiday season. All right. So now we're through the holiday season. We're January, February. Well, typically we would start, if I was doing this, ramping up mode, we start ramping up probably late February, early March. So at that point you end up keeping them on anyway. So for us, well, we hire enough guys where I can keep them gainfully employed throughout the winter, and we don't hire a lot in the spring, but also, so it means that we're a little bit further behind in the summer, and I'll apologize for that, but it's a system I feel good about because we're not laying people off in the fall. But that means we need to build fence during the winter. We need to keep projects moving. So yeah, we fence during I think a lot of fencing contractors will fence through the winter time. Now, that's not to say like some of our further north, brothers and sisters in fencing, up in the Dakotas and, up in the northern regions of the United States, and certainly in Canada, I would hazard a guess, most of the guys and gals I've talked to don't build fence through the wintertime in the further north states. But if you're, kind of the middle to the south of the United States, I'd say wintertime is open game. But so then the next question comes up. So Joe, I have a fence company and we're in the Midwest, or we're, where folks think that we don't build fence in the wintertime, but we do, we want to. How do we market our business? And this all kind of revolves around the discussion we're having earlier as far as marketing. It's social media. We create a different post each and every day to remind folks, hey, we're still here. We're still building fence. And we might do some videos out in the field. And typically when it's snowy, when people wouldn't expect us to be out there, and just highlight our guys building fence, because, it does a couple things. One, it gives them recognition for getting out there and building fence and weather that a lot of folks would not want to build fence in. And it lets the customers know, oh, well, they are nailing, they're finishing a project today. Well, it just snowed last night. The thing about snow here in the Southwest Missouri is there's never a lot of it comes at the same time. Usually, a couple inches or less. So it's enough that with a leaf blower, you can blow most of it out of your way. Whatever you don't blow away, you can certainly, with a broom, brush away where where your grade level's at, and you can continue your fence with no problem. So social media, doing videos. One thing I'd like to caution the fence companies out there that do follow the page is there's a temptation to discount your services. And I will say this, it is a temptation that we have fallen into in the past. I mean, we're guilty of offering discounts in the wintertime to try to keep busy. The problem is you end up not making money on any of your fence. So, if you're a fencing contractor, you know how thin the margins are in fencing. So if you give away a 10% discount, typically net profit wise, we're around 10%, 10 to 12% on a fence build. We did a video on that, towards the beginning of the channel, is kind of where the money goes in fencing. Net profit, now after we pay all the expenses and all our labor and all the material, net profit at the end of the day, typically 10 to 12% on a job. So if we're giving a 10% discount, well, now we're just doing work for free. It keeps my guys employed, which is absolutely what we want. It keeps them making money so they stay with us and they stay comfortable through the wintertime. But as a company, we stop making money. And we don't lose money. We're charging enough to cover all of our costs, but we're not making money either. So one thing we've started doing is instead of offering discounts, we offer upgrades. So say, if we're talking about wood fence, if we're talking about a 6-foot privacy fence that we used to discount for 10%, now maybe we offer a pre-stain service, which we typically upcharge for. We throw that in for free. We upgrade the fence for free. And it does a couple things. One, the upgrade, typically upgrades are on top of, you've already made the 10% on the fence. So the upgrades typically don't cost an extra 10%. So you can offer that. It also offers a value to the client. Now they get a pre-stained fence for the same cost as a regular fence. So they get more value out of the fence. It's really a win-win. So it still keeps you guys gainfully employed. So there's a win. Now the company, instead of working for free, not losing money, but not making money, now they're making a little money. So that's a win. And then the customer gets better value for their dollar. And that's always a win. So really, when we're talking about what specials to run or what upgrades to offer, that's where we start, is how can we provide value to everyone? Our guys, our internal customers, our team members, the business itself, because it's the one that keeps all of us employed, and the customer. How can we provide a win for all of us and provide value for each one of us? And that's how we do it. So offering discounts it's a win-win for the customer and for the employees, but not for the company. So keep that in mind when we're talking about marketing in the wintertime, is offer upgrades instead of discounts. That would be my piece of advice there. Seems like we're winding down here a little bit. Looks like we're about an hour 18 into this. So if you guys are just joining us or have just joined us after we started the broadcast, I want to make the announcement again that we're going to start weekly live Q&As. We're going to start them on Thursday afternoons at 3 o'clock, 3 to 5:30. That way, each and every week, you guys can join in, bring your questions so that we're not trying to save all the questions for once a month. And it's also going to be in the afternoon. So it'll offer, a different time slot too for folks that might not be able to make a morning broadcast or a midday broadcast, but they might be able to make an afternoon broadcast. We are still keeping this slot. The last Tuesday of every month at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, I'll come to you guys live too, because there's some folks that might not be able to make the afternoon/evening slot, but would be able to make a midday slot. So we're going to offer both. If you guys haven't signed up for the 10K giveaway, do that now. There's a video that is on our page. It's literally 10K giveaway. All the details are in the video. The link is in the description of the video. Click the link. It'll ask you for whatever email address you want the Amazon e-gift card sent to. And once we confirm that email address, we know it's good, then you'll be entered. There's also additional way to get more entries by subscribing to the channel, liking the Facebook page, watching some of our YouTube videos, that sort of thing. But if you're not enrolled, you absolutely should be. Literally, that's the only thing we ask for is the email address. And the only reason we ask for that is I need somewhere to send the Amazon e-gift card to. There's no marketing emails. There's no sign up for my product. There's no let me sell you something. It's literally what email address do you want this sent to if you're chosen as one of the winners. So, well, guys, like I said, I'll give you another minute here just to, if you got any last questions for the chat. I know the chat typically runs 10 or 15 seconds behind the video, so I'll give you a chance there. Yeah, we'll wrap up there. 10K, we talked about that. We talked about the new once a week live, so Thursday afternoons. It start at 3:00. I'm saying 3 to 5:30. Really, if it gets like it is now, if it's an hour 20, so if we're at 4:30 and it's kind of winding down, we'll go ahead and probably shut it down early. But absolutely a hard out at 5:30, because as much as I love spending time with my fence fam, with you guys, I also like spending time with my real fam, my kiddos and my wife. And yeah, so I'd like to go home and have dinner with them and play with them before they go to bed. But yeah, so 5:30 will be a hard out for us. Well, guys, doesn't look like there's any more questions. So for now, I appreciate you guys sticking with us. I appreciate you tuning in, bringing some great conversation starting questions. I appreciate that a lot. If you have any more questions, if you're watching this as a recorded video, still drop your comments or drop your questions in the comments below. I always watch our comment section and try to reply back as I can. If you guys found this video helpful, enjoyable, entertaining in any way, if you could hit the like button. Also, if you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing. When you do subscribe, hit that notification bell. You have to set the notifications to all, or else Facebook or YouTube won't let you know each and every time we have new content available. But if you switch it to all, YouTube will send you a little notification letting you know when we're live or when we have pre-recorded content for you. But yeah, without further ado, I'll say goodbye to you guys. Now, keep an eye out. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow. Keep an eye out for that. But until then, for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.